gave him her body and burned my heart to ashes.
The atmosphere felt oddly charged the instant I walked through the door. Not exactly threatening, just unusual. I couldn't pinpoint the reason, but somewhere inside I sensed that whatever it was wouldn't remain beneath the surface for long. It was barely 5 p.m. on a Friday, and instead of juggling the usual end-of-week rush at my garage, I found myself home ahead of schedule. That's a rare occurrence. I'm Mark Ashworth, in case you're wondering, creator and proprietor of Ashworth Autos. I've been elbows deep in engines since my early years and eventually built it into a thriving operation. At the age of 20, I launched a workshop specializing in upscale European vehicles. The area had no shortage of premium rides, yet only one nearby mechanic catered to them, and their prices were outrageous. Spotting a gap in the market, I crafted a compelling proposal and secured financing from the bank. My grandfather also pitched in, helping me get the venture off the ground. Before long, affluent clients started coming in regularly. Eventually, many began requesting help finding suitable cars for their teenagers once they reached driving age, so I expanded into pre-owned sales and custom body repairs as well. Jump to the present. I'm 38 years old, run operations at 4 separate sites, and the company's value hovers somewhere near $8 million. Can't complain, it's been a rewarding ride. Still, I left work early today because my wife, Hannah, said we needed to have a conversation. Her tone was unusually heavy. She's 35 now, and we've been together for over a decade. 14 years of marriage. We first crossed paths when her father, John, asked me to assist her in choosing a vehicle for her 20th birthday. The moment she arrived to collect it, we hit it off right away. Less than 12 months later, we tied the knot. These days, we're raising 2 sons, James, who's 12, and Martin, who just turned 10. From the beginning, John's had my back. As a senior partner at a major accounting firm, he's been a constant source of business wisdom and professional guidance. His wife, Stephanie, a completely different story. She's never approved of me, always believed I wasn't good enough for her daughter. She throws insults my way and constantly reminds Hannah she could have chosen someone more worthy. Hannah's brother, Alex, avoids serious relationships altogether, while her younger sister, Susan, tied the knot with Barkley, a cocky attorney who carries himself like he's the king of the courtroom. Stephanie treats him like he's some kind of divine gift. Something happened to Susan years ago, though nobody talks about it. Whatever it was required surgery, and now she's unable to have children. That makes our sons the only grandkids, and Stephanie's never been thrilled about that. Susan struggles too. Her mom constantly reminding her hasn't helped. Hannah worries about her little sister. I once suggested they consider adoption, but Stephanie shut that down fast, said her grandchildren needed to be blood-related. John mentioned surrogacy, which caught Susan's interest. I explained IVF options, but Stephanie got defensive and asked who'd be supplying the eggs. That was 3 months back, and ever since, the subject has resurfaced every couple of weeks. Now, about that off feeling I had earlier. Hannah's been distant lately, this past week especially. She's been glued to her phone, texting constantly. Normally, she's transparent about everything, but now she's been keeping her screen out of view. And our physical connection, it's been off. We were intimate once, but the spark was missing. Something was different. Our home sits on a little over 3 acres, land my grandfather gave me when I was 11. We built the house here after our wedding. The whole property used to span nearly 15 acres back when my grandfather ran his landscaping business. He left part of it, including the house, to my older brother, sold most of the rest, and put the profits into a family trust that helps pay for our kids' education. Since the house sits way off the road, it's easy to tell when something's up. As I pulled into the driveway and saw several cars, including John and Stephanie's, Susan and Barkley's, and a few I didn't recognize, I knew this wasn't just a visit. Something was brewing, and they'd try to downplay it. I parked the truck and took a few seconds to brace myself. Then I slipped in through the garage so no one would hear me. I paused in the utility room to listen in. The voices were muffled, but clearly mid-conversation. I always carry a small voice recorder in my pocket, something John once recommended for business meetings. I clicked it on and let it roll. I had a hunch it'd pick up something worth keeping. Then I took a breath, pushed open the door, and stepped into the kitchen. There were 8 people gathered in the corner near the kitchen. Hannah was seated on the couch with John and Stephanie. Susan and Barkley occupied the love seat. Alex had taken one of the armchairs. Joan and Karen, Hannah's aunts, sat in dining chairs pulled in from the next room. The only chair left was one of mine from my office, deliberately placed apart from the group. A clear message. As I walked in, Hannah looked up and said, Come on in, Mark. Take a seat. We're just going over a few things and would love your thoughts. I thought, sure. Let's pretend this isn't an ambush. I ignored the seat they'd picked out for me and grabbed a bar stool instead. I spun it around and faced the group. I wasn't just changing the physical height, I was shifting the dynamic. Sitting higher gave me some control, some distance. I didn't speak, just stared Hannah down, letting her see exactly how pissed I was. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away. I slowly swept my eyes across the room. John and Alex looked anywhere but at me. Stephanie looked smug, like she'd already won. Barkley sat there with a smirk, like he thought he had the upper hand. Susan? She was smiling like she'd been waiting for this moment. The air felt heavy, thick with silent tension, like a storm about to break. I stayed quiet. I wasn't going to say a single word until someone else broke the silence. I let it drag out, made them sit in it. Hannah kept shifting, clearly uncomfortable. Her eyes bounced all over the room, never landing on mine. She knew what I was thinking. She knew I wasn't going to just sit there and take whatever they were about to throw my way. I didn't blink. I just kept my gaze locked on her, watching her squirm in her seat like shifting her body might somehow shift the truth. But she wasn't going anywhere. Not from this. She could pretend, all day long. But she was already unraveling. Then, of course, it was Stephanie who broke the silence. She looked proud of herself like she'd just won something. "We've come up with a solution for Susan's situation," she said with a smirk like we were all on the same page. Like I wasn't seconds away from ripping this charade apart. I didn't spare her a glance. My eyes stayed on Hannah, who still refused to look at me. Coward. But eventually she couldn't avoid it any longer. Her eyes met mine, and her voice shook as she said, "Mark, you know Susan can't have children. We've discussed the idea of surrogacy before. It's the best path forward. Mom thinks it should stay within the family, so I've offered to carry the baby." That was it. My restraint snapped. "So, this has been going on behind my back for how long? You've been planning this for weeks and decided I didn't need to know? You think this doesn't affect me? Or our sons?" My words cracked through the room like thunder. "You've had these conversations without me? Since when do you get to decide our future without including me? That's not how this family works, Hannah. You don't get to write me out." Stephanie, always ready with her venom, chimed in without missing a beat. "Why are you making such a fuss, Mark? This is for the family. You should be supporting your wife. Just stand next to her, smile, and be the husband she needs." I didn't turn to her. I turned away from everyone else and stared directly at Hannah. "No, Stephanie. This is my business. It impacts our children. What do you think they'll feel when their mom disappears into a clinic full of needles and hormone shots? You think they won't notice? You think it won't mess them up? You think I won't be affected?" My voice dropped low. "You have no idea what kind of damage this can cause, and your ignorance doesn't make it go away." I scanned the room then, finally taking in everyone else. Barkley still had that smug look, like he was in on some joke. Susan shifted awkwardly. My gut screamed. Something wasn't right. "What is this?" I asked, my voice nearly inaudible. "What's really happening here?" That's when Stephanie delivered the real blow. "There's no IVF involved," she said sweetly, like this was some fairy tale ending. "This baby will be made through love, not science." In that instant, everything became clear. This wasn't about medicine. This was a setup. Planned, executed, and hidden from me until now. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my heart pounding like a drum. "Have you lost your mind?" I snapped. "You thought you could just carry this out and I wouldn't figure it out? You thought I was too dumb to notice?" I turned to Hannah, the fury boiling in my eyes. "Start talking." She winced, clearly shaken. She wasn't ready for this moment. She thought she had the upper hand, but it had slipped. 2 months ago, I stopped taking birth control," she whispered. "My cycle came 3 weeks ago. It's about to start again. I'll be ovulating in 2 weeks, and Barkley's going to move in. We'll conceive. And then he and Susan will adopt the baby? It'll be biologically theirs." I was already on my feet, fists clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. My body was on fire with rage. Before I could speak, Alex stepped toward me, placing a hand on my shoulder. I tried to shrug it off, but he wouldn't let go. "Mark, don't lose it. Don't make this worse," he said, voice calm. I glared at him. "Worse? You think I'm the problem here? You think anything I do now can match what's already been done?" I didn't wait for an answer. "Out, now!" I swept the room with my eyes. Stephanie tried to pipe up again. "Mark, wait! We all need to come to an agreement. I cut her off without hesitation. No, I said, voice sharp. You don't get to decide anything. Not here. Not in my home. Right now, I want every last one of you out. Immediately. John was already standing, trying to coax Stephanie to follow him out. I snapped. John, I said, if your wife isn't out that door in 10 seconds, I swear on everything, I'll drag her out myself. That's not a threat. That's a fact. Stephanie froze, her face drained of color. She turned toward Hannah, looking for backup, desperate to salvage control. Hannah, maybe Alex should stay. For protection, she said, her voice trembling. I laughed bitterly. Protection? You think I'd hurt my wife? That's what this has come to? My tone was low, cold. No, Stephanie, I'm not going to lay a finger on her. But if you honestly believe anything you pulled here tonight will end well for this marriage, if you think I'm ever going to just accept what you've done, then you don't know me at all. Hannah looked like a ghost, pale, wide-eyed, stunned. She turned slowly to her mother, then to the rest of them. Mom, just leave, all of you. Mark and I need to talk alone. Once the last door shut behind them, I stormed into my office and locked it. The first thing I did was pull the audio from my recorder, everything they'd said, and saved it. Then I reset the device for round 2. Moments later, I heard Hannah yelling through the door. Mark! I can't believe how childish you're being! This isn't how adults handle conflict! Get out here! I just sat there in silence. She was the one who dropped this hex storm on me, and now she was mad that I was mad? I almost laughed out loud. Back at the shop, our system automatically logs every call, every message, even WhatsApp chats. It's part of our CRM, has saved us countless times when clients disputed charges. Hannah's phone had the same logging setup. She was constantly texting, and the system caught everything, even if it usually sorted into spam. I wasted no time. I pulled her logs and found the goldmine. Voice calls, texts, everything between her, Susan, Barkley, and Stephanie. They'd even created a private WhatsApp group. The name? Baby. I combed through the messages slowly, going line by line. The conversation had started roughly 3 months ago, right after surrogacy was first floated. Initially, Hannah offered to donate eggs for someone else to carry, but it quickly spiraled into her volunteering to carry the baby herself. Stephanie took control almost immediately, dictating how the whole thing should unfold. Barkley wasn't far behind, tossing out opinions like he was running the show. The most bizarre part? Stephanie was obsessed with the idea that the baby should be conceived naturally, convinced that children born through IVF lacked emotional depth. It took me nearly an hour to process what I'd read. In that time, I contacted my attorney and asked for the name of a good divorce lawyer. When I finally left my office, I found Hannah lounging in the corner of the living room, spinning a glass of red wine like this was just another evening. I'd cooled down a little, but the tension was still burning under my skin. I leaned against the door frame, folded my arms, and threw the first question at her without sugarcoating it. You really thought I'd just roll with this? Her expression hardened instantly. What the heck is that supposed to mean? We already agreed this was the best way to help Susan. And now you're acting like a spoiled child, throwing a fit and kicking my family out of the house like it's yours alone. I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes out when you're too angry to speak clearly. So now I'm the bad guy. You're planning to sleep with someone else, and you expect me to pretend it's noble? That it's about helping your sister? You're out of your mind, Hannah. I shook my head. And don't forget, this is my home too. You disrespect me here again, and I promise you'll see consequences. Keep pushing this, and you won't just lose an argument. You'll lose this marriage. Want me to spell it out? Paint a picture? I was boiling. Where are the boys? Please tell me you didn't involve them in this. That word, divorce, hit her like a punch, but she didn't stay down long. Her glare sharpened and her tone turned venomous. If you leave me, you'll regret it. I'll take you for everything. Child support, spousal support, half of Ashworth Autos, and I'll sell my half to whoever offers the highest bid. The business you built, gone. I just laughed again, shaking my head in disbelief. You think I'll let that happen? You're really that naive? You think Barkley's legal advice is worth anything? Let me break it down. His guidance is garbage. He won't save you. I'll take his bar license and wipe the floor with him in court. I stepped closer, voice cold. This house? This land? It was mine before you even showed up. We both signed a prenup. You have 0 rights to it. And I don't touch what you and your dad built either. You want to have another man's baby and use that as some kind of leverage? Fine. But remember something. During both your pregnancies, you almost died from hypertension. That's in your medical file. If this escalates, I'll fight for full custody, and I'll win. I wasn't playing anymore. Let me make this crystal clear. You don't get pregnant by anyone else while you're still my wife. I won't approve any fertility procedures. And frankly, I don't trust you anymore. You've orchestrated this whole thing to go your way. Well, now it's my turn. She went quiet, then stiffened like she was trying to reassert control. Where are the boys? She asked, voice strained. I want to see them. The mention of our sons changed the atmosphere for just a second. Her expression faltered before she smoothed it out again. They're at the Patterson house, number 30. I'm going to pick them up now. Could you heat up something for dinner? I didn't say a word, just nodded and went to the fridge. I grabbed 2 frozen pizzas and tossed them in the oven. I wasn't in the mood to cook. I spent the rest of the evening outside, kicking the soccer ball around with the boys in the yard, trying to create a sense of normalcy. But nothing felt normal. Inside, I was a volcano ready to blow. The kids were in bed by 9:30, worn out from running around, but I couldn't shake the storm building in my chest. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and headed back to where Hannah had planted herself again. Same chair, same wine glass, like she hadn't just detonated our life. I dropped down onto the couch across from her, cracked open the bottle, and took a long drink. I let the silence stretch between us until it became suffocating. Then I cut in, voice sharp. So you really thought I'd just accept this? That I'd watch you climb into bed with another man so you could give your sister a baby, and I'd be okay with it? That I'd sleep alone while you play surrogate? Are you seriously that blind to how degrading this is? Her face dropped momentarily, but she covered it fast. Her voice came out softer, like she wanted me to pity her. You don't understand, Mark. I'm doing this for Susan. She's falling apart. Mom won't allow IVF, and they can't afford it without help. If I don't step in, I'm scared she'll hurt herself. I couldn't live with that. I stared at her in disbelief. So now it's emotional blackmail. That's what this is. I'm supposed to just surrender because you're saving your sister? You're twisting guilt into a tool, Hannah. This isn't compassion. It's control. I filled my glass again, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Let me make something absolutely clear, I said, voice flat. This whole idea of you and Barkley having a baby? Not happening. If you want to support them, we can help financially. If your mom has a problem with IVF, too bad. But I've already spoken with our attorney, and I'm lining up someone who handles divorce. This is real, Hannah. You go through with this, and it's done. We lose everything we've built. You'll be just like her, and I'm not staying married to that. She bolted out of the room, sobbing, and seconds later, I heard the bedroom door slam shut. I didn't know if she locked it, but I sure as heck wasn't joining her. The idea that she might try to seduce me into forgetting this made my skin crawl. I wanted her to understand what life looked like without me. I headed to the office, locked the door, and pulled up her message history. Turned out she and Susan had a private group chat going. Susan was spiraling, desperate, saying this was her last shot and she didn't know what she'd do without a baby. Hannah told them she'd work on convincing me. Stephanie jumped in with, just do it and apologize later. Barkley chimed in too, said he couldn't risk a divorce. Hannah responded with confidence, claiming the prenup left my business untouched. Barkley had no comeback. Then another message came. Hannah said, he's already looking for a divorce lawyer. I checked my inbox. Tony, our corporate attorney, had replied. His message hit me hard. Wow, he wrote. I always thought you two were solid. He gave me a name, Liam Strong, and said he'd send over a checklist of what I'd need to begin. Soon after, Liam's message arrived, a short intro, along with a request for background and documentation. I knew it was time. I opened a blank Word file and started writing everything I'd uncovered over the past few months. I pasted in the group messages and attached the signed consent form Hannah had given years ago, authorizing us to monitor her communications for company security. Then I closed the laptop, unfolded the sleeper couch, and crashed. I woke to the sound of a doorknob rattling, followed by sharp, panicked knocking. Hannah's voice cut through the stillness, pitched with urgency. Mark, what are you doing? Why didn't you come to bed? I groaned and looked at the clock. 3:30 a.m. I got up slowly, willing myself to stay calm, and unlatched the door. It creaked open to reveal Hannah in the hallway, wearing a robe that barely covered her. It hung loose, clearly with nothing underneath. I stared at her in silence. Not like a husband looking at his wife, but like a man looking at a stranger who had somehow slipped into his home. What's wrong with you? I asked at last, voice like ice. She tried to sound composed, but her tight shoulders gave her away. "I was waiting for you," she said. "I thought we could talk things through. I want you to know there's no reason to be jealous." Right. Of course. Jealousy. I didn't let on that I had already read every message. No reason to tip my hand. I stayed cold, expression unreadable. "Hannah, over the years you've used intimacy to get what you want. Little things, what car to buy, whether we get a pet, petty stuff. But this..." I shook my head. "This isn't about a car or a stupid dog. This is betrayal. You're talking about being with someone else and dressing it up as a noble gesture. I'm not falling for it." Her eyes flickered, just for a second. She hadn't expected me to hit back this hard. "I'm not sharing a bed with a woman who's seriously considering sharing one with another man," I said, voice low and steady. "If you think this won't completely destroy what we have, you're delusional. You've shown me exactly where I rank in your priorities." I locked eyes with her, and I refuse to stay with someone who doesn't even respect me enough to pretend she's not scheming behind my back. She blinked, stunned, but I wasn't done. "This isn't about jealousy, Hannah. It's about dignity. It's about being lied to by the person I've spent my life with. You're stomping all over my self-worth like it's nothing. And you want to know what hurts the most? It's knowing that I have to look in the mirror every morning and see a man who stayed with someone who lied to his face." Without waiting for her reply, I closed the door, turned off the light, and stood there in the dark. I could see the hallway lights seeping underneath. She was still there. I could hear her breathing. A few seconds later, the light flicked off. Saturday morning arrived. Normally, I wouldn't leave the house until later, but today I was out the door early, grabbed a bagel from the food cart, and headed straight to the office. Made myself some coffee and sat down at my desk, going over everything in my head. I figured Hannah would try a new tactic. Last night's little come-to-bed move classic. She always tried seduction when she wanted something. I used to cave. Not this time. Holding the line felt really good. I started wondering if she understood that this wasn't just a disagreement. This was different. She could take one of two routes: try to butter me up, put on the good wife act, remind me how great a mom she is, hoping I'd forget about the betrayal. Or she could turn bitter, make my life a nightmare if I didn't cooperate. My bet was on the soft approach, at least for now. And when it came, I'd be ready with the opposite. I stayed at the office until around 4:30, well after everyone else had left. The truth is, I didn't want to go home. The marriage felt shattered, like a mirror someone had smashed with a brick. Hannah had thrown it, and no matter how many pieces we tried to tape back together, it was never going to be whole. I finally dragged myself back at 5. Predictably, she was waiting in the kitchen. She had on a sundress that hugged her just right, her makeup flawless, her smile sweet and polished, like she was auditioning for forgiveness. On any other day, I might have kissed her right there. Not today. I barely looked at her. I walked past and headed straight to the spare room to change clothes. 20 minutes later, I heard her voice from down the hall. "Mark, dinner's ready." I kept my cool for the boys' sake, playing the part, but every smile Hannah gave me felt like a performance, and I wanted her to know I wasn't buying it. She poured us both some wine, then brought over a plate with T-bone steak, fries, and sautéed mushrooms. Classic Saturday dinner, her usual peace offering. I barely looked at her, keeping my focus on the boys, talking with them about anything and everything, especially the things she always avoided. She tried to shift the conversation a few times, but I wouldn't let her. The kids didn't pick up on the tension, but she definitely did. Once we cleared our plates, she casually tried to slide something in, like it was just routine. "Mark, why don't you help me with the dishes? Let the boys go hang out for a while." I stood up, already irritated, but when she stayed seated like she hadn't just tossed a grenade into our lives, my patience wore thin. From the other room, I could hear the boys bickering over their video game. And that's when she dropped it. "Mark, sit down, we need to talk." I dropped into the chair with force, arms crossed, bracing myself. "What now?" I said flatly, already expecting a mess. She didn't sugarcoat anything, just shot me a look like I was the one who'd lost the plot. "Are you seriously asking that? If you don't see what's going on here, then we're more broken than I thought." She leaned in slightly. "Let me spell it out for you. You're considering letting another man get me pregnant for someone else's baby." I stared at her, letting the accusation hang in the air. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't blink. My words came sharp and deliberate. "And you think I'm going to sit by and let that happen?" You really think I'm dumb enough to accept this as some generous act? You've been calling this a favor for your sister, but what you're actually doing is betraying me and pretending it's noble. Whatever fake warmth she'd been holding on to vanished. Her expression hardened. I'm doing this for Susan, she snapped. If you can't understand that, then maybe you should just leave. Divorce me. She thought I'd cave. She thought I'd back down. You're ready to throw our marriage away for this? I asked quietly. Then don't act surprised when it falls apart. I spent the entire day thinking about this, really thinking. You know what I came to? Marriage should be like a reflection, you and me, facing life together. But you? You're taking a hammer to the glass. Every shard cuts a little deeper, and no matter how much glue we use, it'll never look whole again. I stood slowly, leaning over the table, voice low and unwavering. I'm not bluffing. You want to choose them over us, over me and the boys? Then don't be shocked when there's nothing left to pick up. This isn't about jealousy. It's about respect. It's about loyalty. And you've already made your choice, so stop dressing it up as something selfless. I left her sitting there and walked straight into the kids' room. They were glued to their game, and that suited me just fine. I sat down between them, picked up a controller, and lost myself in Call of Duty. For that brief window, the noise in my head faded, but I could still feel the walls crumbling around me. It was gut-wrenching, knowing something so important was slipping through my fingers. Days passed, then weeks, but nothing changed. Hannah went into full performance mode, dutiful wife, doting mom, acting like she could earn my forgiveness through smiles and well-cooked meals. But whenever she mentioned the baby thing again, I shut her down. I made it clear she'd already crossed the line. And every time she tried again, all she said was, "Just trust me, Mark." No chance. Then one evening, Susan joined us for dinner. Afterward, Hannah asked if I'd come speak with them in the corner of the living room. I knew what this was. The moment she said it, my stomach dropped. Susan started in like she was a charity worker on a mission, all emotion and desperation. Mark, I need this. A child is the missing piece of my life. What Hannah's offering, it's the most generous thing anyone's ever done for me. Please, can't you just open your heart? I turned to look at Hannah. Her eyes were dancing everywhere but mine. I didn't need to hear another word. The ambush was clear, but I wasn't going to be tricked. Susan, I said firmly, there are 1,000 ways to become a parent. Turning my wife into your personal surrogate by sleeping with someone else? That's not one of them. Hannah inhaled sharply beside me. She was trying to keep her calm, but she'd lost control of the conversation, and she knew it. I get that life's handed you a raw deal, I continued. But if you're seriously asking my wife to go behind my back for this, then I'm done. If this plan keeps going, our marriage ends. Are you really okay with that? You're willing to blow apart our family just so you can build yours? Susan's face fell, but I wasn't finished. And let's say Barkley can't get it done the first try. Then what? You keep going? Round after round until something sticks? Took us almost a year with James and nearly half that with Martin. This isn't going to be magic. I glanced at Hannah again. She turned away, ashamed. Like she hoped I wouldn't say what we were all thinking. And what if one baby isn't enough? I asked. You gonna ask for a second? A third? How many times are you expecting her to go through this before it's enough? Are you trying to build a family? Or a collection? Susan went red, but Hannah just stared at her hands, picking at her cuticles like a teenager caught lying. I looked at her, all the love I had curdling into disappointment. So, that's your endgame? I said coldly. Keep going until you feel complete. No matter what it costs us, you really have turned into your mother, and now I see it for what it is. I rose to my feet, jaw tight and fists clenched. Susan and Hannah stood up too. Tears were already streaming down Susan's cheeks, but Hannah? Her guard dropped, and her fury came out swinging. Mark, I seriously didn't think you could be this unbelievably ignorant. We've given you every single chance to act like an adult, and you refuse. You just refuse. Whatever. I'm going to Susan and Barkley's on Friday and staying the week. Sort your mess out. I didn't flinch. My voice cut clean through the heavy air. Don't waste your time coming back Friday. You'll be served divorce papers the moment you arrive, and your stuff will be packed in the garage, ready to go. For the past 3 weeks, I'd been meeting with Liam Strong, 6 appointments in total. The prenup had me covered, shielding both my business and trust fund. I owned the house and land before our marriage, so only our joint accounts and investments needed splitting. That meant she'd walk away with roughly $1.5 million. I'd already separated the accounts. Our state might be no fault, but it does factor in unreasonable conduct. Between the WhatsApp texts and the audio from that meeting, I had more than enough proof that Hannah had crossed that line. Add in her hospital stay during the pregnancy. Custody of the boys was already leaning in my favor. Heading to my room, I sent Liam a quick text. She's moving forward. They begin Friday. He called me right away. Hey, he started, and then dove in. You know exactly what their game plan is? I gave him the details. She's heading to their place Friday after work. She's staying through the weekend and the entire following week. Got it, he replied. We need to serve her the moment she clocks out Friday. It'll give her one last shot to reconsider, and it'll play better in court. Judges want to see that she had every chance to pull back. Nothing says final choice louder than a petition for divorce. The house felt frozen, like every wall had turned to ice. Each room echoed with silence thick enough to choke on. After the boys were tucked in, I felt her eyes constantly on me. But I wasn't about to pretend anything was normal. She kept trying to cozy up, act like things were fine, like we hadn't hit a breaking point. At one point, she even tried guiding my hand to her waist like we were still some loving couple. I pulled away every single time. Then she finally spoke, her voice soft and sweet like she expected me to melt. Mark, it's just a week. 1 week. How can that possibly ruin everything? I jerked back from her, stood up, and let the fury rise. Hannah, this changes everything. You're choosing someone else over your husband. When you return, you'll no longer be the wife I married. I'll never be able to look at you without remembering this betrayal. You think it's just a week? That's how clueless you are? If you walk into their house tomorrow, this marriage ends. No turning back. Her expression faltered, but she held my gaze, trying to convince me there was still something left to salvage. I'm not abandoning you, she whispered. I'm helping my sister, that's all. I gave a sharp, joyless laugh. No, you're walking away from me, from your kids. You're putting their wants over our needs. You're ditching us for a full week like we don't matter. You don't even care what I'm supposed to tell our sons. And when word gets out, because it will, what then? You think the kids won't hear about it? That it won't spread through school like wildfire? I stepped in closer, my voice turning colder. And don't think for 1 second this ends if it doesn't work this time. You'll be right back next month, and the one after that, and the one after that, until she gets what she wants. And people will talk, Hannah. They'll judge. They'll twist it. And you'll be the one left trying to explain how you turned your life into a complete mess. Guilt flickered in her eyes, but I wasn't about to let her rewrite this story. You've already turned your back on me, on our family. Also, you could make your sister happy, and your mom too. You chose them, not us. I leaned in close, my voice low and sharp. This is your last shot. One moment to actually see what you're about to throw away. Keep going down this road? Fine. But don't come crying later. You'll be the one who wrecked this family. I walked out. She didn't follow right away, but I knew she would. I climbed the stairs without looking back and locked the bedroom door. Seconds later, knocking. First soft, then loud. What do you mean by inevitable? What are you going to do? Panic edged her voice. I cracked the door just enough to look her in the eye. I already told you what's coming, I said, tone dark and final. Now you choose. Your family or your sister's selfish plan. Make your call. But once it's made, there's no do-over. You'll see what happens, and it won't be kind. I didn't wait for her to say anything. I slammed the door shut in her face, the sound ringing through the hollow house like a warning shot. There was no coming back from this, not for me, not for her. By 10 that night, I was already in bed, finally catching some real sleep. The first solid rest I'd had since this whole disaster began. I'd done all I could. The rest, that was on her. Whatever happened from here was hers to carry. The next morning, I didn't rush out like usual. What was the point? I stuck around, made breakfast for the boys, trying to play the role of a calm dad while my mind spun in every direction. Then I heard her voice. Hannah strolled into the kitchen, dragging that oversized travel suitcase behind her. She gave me that concerned look, like she expected me to ask if she was okay. Instead, she slid the bag into the laundry room like I wouldn't notice a thing. I didn't even glance up from the frying pan. So, I guess the decision's been made. She went rummaging in the hall closet, flipping through hangers until she froze. I heard her breathing shift. What's with this eat one last time talk? You've been saying weird stuff lately. What's going on, Mark? I kept my back turned. My tone stayed calm but firm. There's no mystery, Hannah. I've laid it all out. You just chose not to hear it. You really think I'm blind to what you're doing? I know exactly where this is going. Stop pretending I don't." She let out a breath like she was steadying herself. Then she dropped the emotional weight. "I can't just walk away from Susan, Mark. She's in crisis. If I leave now, it could push her over the edge." I turned and looked her dead in the eye, jaw clenched. "Yeah? And our family? We've been on the back burner for way too long. You made your pick and it wasn't us. Don't stand there acting like you're some noble hero. You're not. You're just looking out for yourself." I didn't let her respond. I called upstairs. "Boys, breakfast is on." Then I snatched my keys off the counter and headed for the front door like it was just another morning. "Later," I mumbled as I walked out. But she caught my wrist before I could leave. Her voice cracked. "You're seriously not even going to kiss me goodbye?" I pulled my hand away, eyes forward. "No, wouldn't want to take something away from Barkley." My voice was sharp and cold, and I knew she felt every word. She started crying behind me, but I didn't flinch. I walked out, slammed the door behind me, and let the silence swallow her sobs. Then I heard it, the worst part of all. Her voice, torn and trembling, seeping through the door like a ghost. "Mark, please, I can't do this without you." All day, calls came pouring in. Hannah, Susan, even Stephanie. I didn't pick up a single one. Around 4, my secretary buzzed in. "John's on the line." "Put him through," I said, waiting. "Mark, listen," John began. "We both know this isn't just drama anymore. It's a standoff. Hannah thought you'd cave, but you've held firm. Now she's stuck. She backs down. She loses. What can we do to fix this?" I let out a long breath. "There's nothing to fix, John. If I let her go through with this, I won't recognize myself afterward. I won't be able to look at her. Heck, I won't even be able to touch her. She should have known that. Deep down, she did. But she gambled anyway. And now? Now I think this marriage is dead. You saying she can't retreat only confirms it. Either she comes home tonight, or we're done." He paused, then asked, "So when she says you're filing for divorce, that's real?" "Yeah, it's real. I told her if she didn't stop, I'd file. And I meant it. The papers are already drawn up. We live in a no-fault state. She can't stop it, even if she begs." John sounded tired. "Are you going to stick to the prenup?" "Glad you brought that up," I said. "Yeah, I will. I'm not trying to cheat anyone. But I'm not being overly generous either. The house was mine before we ever met. My business stays protected." There was a moment of quiet. Then John admitted, "Honestly, I'd probably do the same thing in your shoes. I told Stephanie we should have stepped in earlier, but she figured you'd been for the image. I should have pushed harder." We wrapped up the call with polite goodbyes, but I knew the next time we talked, it wouldn't be so civil. I decided to head home early. The boys were at Mrs. Neal's next door. I needed time to adjust to what life was going to look like now. Then my phone rang again. It was John. His voice was sharp. "Mark, it's done. She got served today." "Yep," I said. "Told you I would." Now she understands I'm not bluffing. The choice is hers, me and the kids, or Susan and Barkley. Silence lingered before John replied, "She's in shock. Stephanie's furious, and Susan, she's sinking so low we can't even talk to her anymore." "You know what I've been dealing with, John," I said. 3 weeks of this. I'm not the one who broke things. I've got no other move left. You tell Hannah that whatever happens next, it's on her. If she wants to come home, we can talk. If not, well, then I'll know where we stand." I ended the call. There wasn't anything else to say. I drove home, picked up the boys, and ordered pizza. If Hannah walked through that door, the calm wouldn't last. We ate dinner, and I loaded the dishwasher just as I heard a car pull into the driveway. I peeked out the window. John, Stephanie, and Hannah were getting out. I turned to the boys. "Go upstairs and hop on your computers, okay?" They nodded and headed up. I went into the bedroom, now a place I hated. Too many ugly memories stuck in those walls. That's when Stephanie blew in like a tornado. Her face was twisted in fury, her energy pure fire. John followed close behind, trying to slow her down. "Stephanie, we're here to help. Don't make things worse," John said, grabbing her arm in a weak attempt to reel her in. She pulled her arm free and spun around, eyes blazing. "Worse? You think this could get worse, John? This moron is destroying our chances of having grandkids. I'm finished with this circus. He's tearing the family apart, and I won't stand by and watch." I saw John's jaw tighten, and it was clear even he was running out of patience. He gave her a sharp glare, and though she stepped back slightly, she kept flinging her anger like daggers. Then Hannah stepped into the room behind them, her steps slow and heavy, like someone headed to their own sentencing. Her fingers clutched a brown envelope, and her face was blotchy and raw from crying. She sank into the couch without saying a word, her gaze fixed on the floor. I remained in my chair across the room, facing straight ahead. John nudged Stephanie into a chair by the table and mumbled something about coffee, but I didn't bother listening. My focus was locked on Hannah. Eventually, she met my eyes, her voice shaky. "Is that really your final answer?" I didn't move a muscle. "Yeah, it is?" Her voice wavered. "There's no room for discussion?" "None," I answered, without pause. She hesitated, then asked, "Can we at least consider IVF? Can we talk about that option?" That hit me like a punch to the gut, and I fought the urge to throw up. "Hannah, we had this exact conversation 3 weeks ago, but you didn't want to hear it. You figured you could just move forward behind my back and I'd accept it. Well, now it's too late. You want to donate eggs? Hire a surrogate? Fine, I'll pay for it. But you will not carry that baby yourself, not after what you did to me." I noticed Stephanie gearing up to say something, but John stepped in, placing a hand on her shoulder and giving her the look that meant, "Drop it," he said softly. "This isn't your fight. Let them deal with it." Tears filled Hannah's eyes again, spilling over as she stared at me, pleading. But I wasn't the villain anymore. She made sure of that. I wasn't going to be her scapegoat. She dabbed her face with her sleeve and whispered, "I don't want a divorce, Mark. I still love you. Tell me what I can do to fix this." I leaned back and exhaled slowly. "Honestly, I'm not sure this can be fixed. There's been too much damage, too many secrets, too much disrespect. But if you're serious, the first step is cutting ties with Susan. Shutting me out like I didn't matter? That ends now. If you go ahead with being her surrogate, we're done. I'll file without another word." She looked crushed, but I pressed on. "Second, we rebuild what's left. If there is anything left. You don't get to make decisions like this alone and expect forgiveness without earning it. I gave you room to be your own person, but you took that and ran wild. A wife who truly respects her husband doesn't blindside him like this. A woman who understands marriage would never have crossed this line." I let those words sit, cold and deliberate. "We might try to repair what's shattered, but I don't know if it's even possible anymore." She winced. Her voice was trembling now, words laced with dread. "You once said a broken mirror can be fixed, but the cracks always stay. Is that how it's going to be between us now? Are we really that far gone?" I stared right at her, unwavering. "Yeah, I think we are." That was the last straw for Stephanie. Her expression twisted into pure fury. Her voice came out sharp as a knife. "What about Susan? You're destroying her only shot at motherhood. How can you be so unbelievably cold?" Still looking at Hannah, I replied calmly. "Here's the deal. You can go to the clinic, get your eggs retrieved, have them fertilized with Barclay's contribution, and implanted in a surrogate. It's a standard process, but I'm not finished. Once the eggs are retrieved, I expect you to have your tubes tied." The color drained from Hannah's face. She knew this was coming, but hearing it out loud was another blow entirely. Her voice cracked, pleading, "Mark, please don't make me do this." I shook my head, disgusted. "You really don't get it. You keep using your body like a pawn in some emotional game, thinking you can just keep going behind my back. This is the only way I know you won't pull something like this again. I'm done being the one who gets burned." She sobbed harder, but I didn't budge. I wasn't her rescue boat. I wasn't going to let her slip out of this without consequences. Stephanie turned toward me, eyes wide with disbelief. "You're heartless. You know that?" I didn't flinch. I turned slowly and said with a smirk, "I learned it from the best, Stephanie." Eventually, Hannah gave in. She agreed to the sterilization if I dropped the divorce. We struck a deal. I'd pause the process, and once she went through with the surgery, I'd officially cancel the filing. A month later, we walked into the IVF clinic. They found a surrogate for Susan and Barclay, and John and I each paid her $10,000. The retrieval went smoothly. Just some minor side effects for Hannah. A week later, she had the procedure, and I went to the courthouse to pull the divorce papers, which the judge signed off on without issue. Everything appeared normal again, but the spark in our marriage had burned out. The physical closeness faded. We sat in different chairs every night, half watching TV in silence. About 4 weeks after the retrieval, the surrogate was implanted with 2 fertilized embryos. She miscarried in the 3rd month. No viable embryos remained, and Hannah wasn't able to produce more. Hannah stopped organizing family events. I made sure to avoid the others, too. We were just two adults parenting under one roof, with a legal document saying we were married. But no love, no trust. Just distance. Everything I predicted came true. Hannah had built a no-win situation, and in the end, it collapsed exactly the way I said it would. For a decade, Hannah and I built our lives around the boys. Practices, school functions, all of it. I showed up every time, and so did she. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family, but behind closed doors, things were different. Sure, we shared a bed, and we were physically intimate too, maybe 3 times a week, but there was no passion behind it. We made sure the other was satisfied, then turned our backs and fell asleep like strangers. When Martin hit 16, he launched his own app company and started pulling in real money. By 20, a tech firm out of San Jose offered to buy him out for 7 figures and bring him on board with a 6-figure salary. He said yes, and we drove out with him to scout the area. He ended up leasing a place in a gated neighborhood right off the freeway. James, now 22, had just tied the knot with his college girlfriend. They both worked in accounting for John and were renting a modest house. Buying was out of reach with real estate prices climbing, so I set up a trust to help them eventually purchase one. With both kids gone, the house felt hollow, and so did we. Neither of us seemed interested in talking anymore. 2 weeks after James's wedding, Hannah asked me to come home early. When I walked in, she was already seated at the kitchen table, suitcase beside her. She had tears in her eyes, but spoke clearly. "Mark, let's be honest. This has been a long time coming. We stopped being a real couple 10 years ago. We've just been drifting, pretending everything's fine, but it's time to face the truth. This marriage is over. No matter what we do, the damage is done." She continued, "I'm moving forward with the divorce. It's the same plan as before. My attorney's info is in the envelope. Let's keep it straightforward." I couldn't argue. We'd been living separate lives for years. She had her finances, and I had mine. Everything had already been mentally divided. This wasn't sudden. The wheels had been turning for a while. Once momentum starts, there's no stopping it. I nodded. "It's probably for the best. Just tell me who to contact, and I'll make sure it gets done." Hannah rose, leaned over, and kissed my cheek. "First sign of affection in years," she said softly. "I've packed for the week. I'm planning to rent a place near James, same street. I'll let you know once I'm settled and someone can swing by to grab the rest of my things." "Mind if I take some furniture?" she asked. "No problem," I told her. "Just leave me a couple of chairs and somewhere to sleep." She chuckled. "Doubt much of it will even fit in my new place." Then she said, "Goodbye, Mark," and walked out for the last time. I felt a twinge of sadness, but mostly a sense of relief. We hadn't truly been a couple in ages, and this just felt like closing a chapter that had been long overdue. I called Liam, and he agreed to help handle the divorce again. The judge suggested counseling, but we both declined. The court approved the split, and 90 days later, it was finalized just how Hannah had asked. Not long before the divorce became official, James announced they were expecting a baby. He wasn't visiting much, so I started making some bold moves. First order of business, sell the company. I listed it, and one of my top competitors came in with a $30 million offer. I took the deal. To anyone else, the business wouldn't have been worth that much, but to my rival, it was strategic. After the sale, I handed James the keys to the house and relocated to a tiny town up in Napa Valley. The place was so small, it didn't even have a mechanic. So I opened my own garage. Just me, doing my thing on my schedule. Even better, Martin was able to work remote most of the time, so he moved in with me. We turned the basement into a home office. I kept making trips back and forth to visit our old city. James was still bitter about the split, but he welcomed my presence in baby Jane's life. I enjoyed visiting her. A few years after she was born, I bumped into Hannah during one of my visits. She'd started dating a doctor, one of her longtime clients. I wished her well. Later, I went to a mixer in my new town, invited by my accountant. That night, I met Ruby, a web designer in her early 30s. The group planned a casual get-together the next night, and as we were heading out, Ruby grinned and said, "You better show up tomorrow." I smiled back. "Is it worth it, or a waste of time?" She laughed. "This one, it'll be worth it. Promise." Ruby was 20 years younger than me, but I was completely taken in. We never got married, but after that, I never lacked companionship again. After Susan's miscarriage, she was shattered. She started therapy, left her job, and went back to school to become a special education teacher. Once she graduated, she found a job working with special needs kids and discovered real purpose in it. Her depression lifted, and eventually, she came to see not having children as the best thing that ever happened to her. Barkley, on the other hand, went off the rails. Susan caught him trying to get a surrogate pregnant the natural way, and he pulled it off. He married the woman, and they had 3 kids. But during their divorce, he discovered she'd been cheating, and only the first child was biologically his. The other 2? Not his. Since he'd signed their birth certificates, and no one could track down the real fathers, child support was canceled. Now he's living in a sketchy part of town, mostly doing freelance work for people in the same neighborhood. His ex poisoned the kids against him, and now they won't even speak to him. I'd bet anything he regrets having kids now.